likes of it. So, but yeah, I mean, okay, that's fine. The elegant dismounts.
So I have musical instrument envy. But then I go, no, I have a musical instrument too. In fact, everyone in this room has a musical instrument. And I always love the idea that when we talk, we're actually shaping wind. So we are wind instruments in the politest sense of the word. So as you may have gathered, I grew up in England. And we're talking here a lot about rhythm and sound and how it's different for each of us. And I think it's so incredibly important in a world that has been taken over by day language, by the language of transactions and business and simple, short, declarative sentences and get to the point and speak concisely. And really, will you just keep it short? That we allow ourselves the sheer, sensuous, erotic pleasure of language that lives in the mouth and the tongue and that stirs us and vibrates and creates this incredible, what I'm feeling, erotic sort of quality between us. So it's going to be very strange, having said that I'm actually going to begin by reading a poem by a Jesuit priest. But I happen to think that Gerard Manley Hopkins is one of the most deliciously erotic poets that there is. And, you know, I was brought up in a Catholic boarding school and struggled to feel a deep spiritual connection. But through poetry, I really felt that connection to the divine. And I'm inviting all the percussionists and guitarists to chime on in with this. But this is called Pied Beauty. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple colour as a brinded cow, for rose moles all in a stipple upon trout that swim, fresh fire coal, chestnut falls, finches' wings, landscape plotted and pieced fold, fallow and plough, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim, all things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle dim, he fathers forth, whose beauty is past change, praise him. And when I first heard, thank you, that poem, I didn't know what he was talking about. I still don't. I haven't even looked up brindled. I should have looked up brindled. I don't know what a brindled cow is, but it sounds like a cow that has things on it, like spots and splotches. But the point is I didn't care, because the music, the sound, the joy and assonance and alliteration and all the wonderful poetic devices just lifted me up like wings in the soul. Voice is very important in England. You get classed, you get put in where you lie on the hierarchy depending on how you speak, and particularly how you say your vowels. And my mother was obsessed with my vowels. So we had a corner store called Boots, which was like a chemist's. And she would always go, no, darling, you're not going to Boots, you're going to Boots. You're going to Boots. But this is a wonderful, silly, delicious poem, which most of you are probably familiar with, by Edward Lear, who's best known for his limericks. And here I really do need help with percussion and thing, because it's a very simple poem. It's the first one I ever learned and have now forgotten, so I'm going to read it. At 6 years old and rather tubby and deeply earnest, I memorized it and charge people money to come and hear me speaking. Hubris even then. So there we go. So The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, you are. What a beautiful pussy you are. Pussy said to the owl, you elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried, but what shall we do for a ring? So they sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there, in a wood, a piggy wig stood with a ring at the end of his nose, his nose, his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy, I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon, they danced by the light of the moon.
Yeah.
This is my first time on a panel, so I'm a little bit nervous. So I'm Jeremiah. I am a senior studying mechanical engineering here, and I have been dancing for, this is my 9th year of breakdancing. So I'll give a quick, brief history about breakdancing, or as my mom calls it, cleaning the floor. So breakdancing, or breaking, started in New York in the 1970s, specifically in the Bronx neighborhoods, by African American and Latino youth. It was started as a way to curb their energy, their anger, because they were mostly from low income, low opportunity families, and because of that, they usually got into trouble. And so breaking became a way for them to resolve their conflicts, release their energy, solve problems without any violence. In connection to rhythm, I'll turn it over to my videographer, Jackson.
I wrote down what I'm going to say. Hello? Okay. You guys know the Netflix original series, The Get Down? Okay. So in there, the DJ, he said a line that I remembered. He said the DJ is the conductor, and the dancers, the b-boys, were the instruments. Because we have sounds weird, but we have bodily response to rhythm, to music. So our movements are actually dependent on whatever the rhythm is, and our movements change based on the music we hear as well. So for example, I'm going to try. So when we hear dum-ts-tats, dum-ts-tats, that's a breakbeat, and he started nodding because he's starting to feel that beat. That's something we're familiar with. But if we hear like dum-ts, 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 see how there's nothing? So different style of dancers, we have different rhythms that we naturally respond to, or we're conditioned to respond to. But of course, good dancers, they should be able to dance to any melody, any rhythm. So what that brings is that when we try to dance to different styles, we come up with different movements and even flow. So for example, if I try to dance to contemporary music, I might go slower, but my movements are still rigid. Other way around, if contemporary dancers try to dance to breakbeats. She might be a little bit more fast-paced, but her movements are probably likely to be more fluid than we are. That's all I have to say. Go.
Okay, so I'm Nikolai, president of the City Breaking Club. I've been dancing for 8 years now. I would say with rhythm, with dance, it's like a way for us all to be connected. So there's been so many times where I've met people at dance events, and they don't speak English, but we can still dance together, and that's how we communicate, is through our dance. And for me, it's a lot easier to communicate with that medium of dance rather than with actual words and stuff. So it's easier to get across the emotion when you hear a really angry beat. You can really embody that, or if it's really happy, you can your movements become more happy as well, and you get to communicate that emotion to people through our dance.
I just wanted to add that, like I said before, rhythm is a part of every one of our lives. It's in our heartbeat. It's in the way we walk. It's in the way we talk. And so, because of that, I believe that no matter how old you are, no matter how young, no matter how clumsy you think you are, you have the ability to dance. You have the ability to play an instrument. So if you want to, go out there and try it, because you'll be surprised at how talented you actually are, because rhythm is so ingrained into who we are that I have a feeling that everyone can pick it up very fast.
Yeah. Right.
So we're going to invite them out into the hallway to stretch, prepare whatever they need, and we'll see them again in a moment. And I have one very small little tidbit, like a side note about our sober Irishman. ProPublica, his platform, God, I'm losing my words because it's too exciting. Okay, you just won the New York Daily News we won the Pulitzer Prize. Okay. I can't say the words, it's too good. Sexton and ProPublica, everyone. New York Daily News Pulitzer Prize winners.
Right.
That's incredible. All right.
The
now whatever you say can just soften the blow with your fear.
right. Well, there's no more greater glory hog than me, but I can claim no credit for that. But it is a lovely achievement for our organization, ProPublica, which actually did a partnership with the New York Daily News, in which it examined the use by the New York Police Department of a particular kind of enforcement mechanism, which was known as nuisance abatement. There's probably a bunch of percussionists and poets who've been, up against the wall for being a nuisance. Anyway, it was a powerful series and has provoked a bunch of reform, and it won the Pulitzer Prize for public service. So, anyway. I was going to say that Emily had not fully cataloged all my handicaps as somebody to talk about rhythm. There's the white and the Irish and the sober. So if there was a chance I was going to dance today, it probably was when I was drinking. But maybe the greatest disqualifying aspect of myself is that I'm actually a newspaper man. A much misunderstood and derided and now nearly extinct creature. And there are a lot of unpleasant things that can legitimately be said about newspaper people over the years. But one thing that I've always been particularly proud of as a newspaper man, was that you had to perform under pressure. So I began at the New York Times 35 years ago as a young punk sports writer. And it doesn't sound particularly glamorous, and I wasn't involved in saving democracy or winning Pulitzer Prizes. I just wanted to get the score right. and get the 800-word story filed on time. But when you're writing on deadline, and you think the game is 3-2, and somebody just hit a home run, fuck it! In the bottom of the ninth, and now you have to write 800 new words in 6 minutes, and there's somebody on the phone yelling at you, where the fuck's the copy? You write to a form. What you need most of all is to find some kind of rhythm to get through the next 6 minutes. And so maybe I have more credentials to talk about rhythm than I think. And that was actually sort of reinforced for me, so that when I was a young sports writer, I worked first at United Press International, and my first sports editor was a gentleman named David Tucker. And I loved him from the moment I saw him. Fat, bushy-haired, cigar-chomping, profane, language-loving, hard-charging, competitive. And I was like, wow, I want to be that guy. I may just kiss him. Anyway, he went on to a great career at the Philadelphia Inquirer and other newspapers. And then I out of the blue, I read a newspaper story that said he had just won an award for poetry. And I was like, fuck, I knew there was a connection between sports writing and poetry. He was just a lot better at it. And so he's produced a number of volumes of poetry, and one of them is built around the life of a newspaper and a newspaper newsroom. And I'll read one for you, because I think you got the rhythm right. It's called Morning Edition. When I walk out of the newsroom, usually around midnight these newsy days, there's always a scattering of copy editors left, tapping out changes for the first edition. No one is talking, no one looks up, hands flying. They lean over their keyboards like racers on motorcycles. How peaceful to be one of the lucky ones off deadline now, to walk through this light rain to the parking lot thinking, what the hell, it's just a newspaper. Newark's barred up storefronts rattle in the wind, a taxi whizzes by, the driver looking lost and afraid to stop. In the all-night gas station, young gangsters chatter, white T-shirts hanging like hospital gowns to their knees. They stare from the edge of news not quite breaking yet. And farther down, the yellow news trucks idle at the loading docks, drivers smoking and talking, silhouetted in headlights. For tomorrow, we offer a photo of bloody hands passing a coffin over a crowd in Baghdad, and a photo of the president grinning like a boy who ate a grasshopper, and the jubilation of the bowling team that won the lottery. A new planet discovered by the Hubble telescope, a speck of light you almost have to imagine to see. A cure for cancer, that probably won't last. The cop killer rising for his sentence like a crazed plant before the judge. The governor lying about the lie he told the day before. The state senator from Bergen calling his committee into secret session. Killer tree in Rahway, roots weakened by rain, this rain, toppling on a doctor and his wife as they sped for the Rahway exit, late for dinner. How peaceful to walk out into the world we just wrote about while it shimmers as if just made. To walk through the steam of sewer vents past the crouched, drizzling doorways of bedraggled Newark, having told what we knew, which we always find out wasn't that much after all. And to then drive away as the forklifts wobble across the loading dock, raising the unsteady bales of the morning edition.
So we've gone through all of these people individually and some collaborations already around their own approaches to rhythm. And now we have a very special individual hiding in the corner. This is Tulua Obawole. She is, are you the current Youth Poet Laureate? Or the 2015-2016 Denver Youth Poet Laureate. She is a slam poet and a CU student, and we're so happy that she can join us all today. I think if we can get this mic over here, I don't think it's active right now, whoever's controlling that one, get that one on. And I'm going to invite Sam and any percussive musicians or anybody that would like to collaborate on at least one poem from Sam, if you'd like to do another, and 1 to 2 from Tulua, with more musical accompaniment, inviting you out into the front so you're not hidden behind this desk, David Wilcox, for example. And we're going to explore those intersections a bit more. If anybody else has any responses, yeah. Oh, you're good? And one more thing, just so you all know, I don't think we're going to get to a Q&A portion. This is going to phase more into performance. And I just ask that instead of participating through Q&A, that each and every one of you participate in CWA and in this panel through sharing your experience here. So sharing, either telling somebody about a cool thing or a moment that you saw, or at another panel today, either on social media, in verbal, writing it down, sending a letter, maybe donating to Betsy or John'll. But I'm not harping you about that at all. I just think it's a very important thing to share what moves you and to elicit more of that in your community. And so if anything in this panel moves you in this performance section, please share, whether it's on Facebook, in an email, in a note to somebody, in a comment to a participant. It's just a very important thing to do, to be participatory, and I hope that you all can do that in place of asking questions today. So I hope you enjoy the next segment of this panel.
She doesn't have any rhythm.
So a lot of my poems and my poetry have to do specifically with my identity and my experiences here in America, living in this body as an African immigrant queer woman, you know, navigating through life. So a lot of my poems hang on that string, but I did write a sestina not too long ago that is probably a little bit more cognizant of rhythm. So a sestina, for those of you who don't know, a sestina is a form of poem. The first 6 to 8 lines, the last word of each line is repeated in certain order throughout the poem, and it creates a really cool effect with the words and how those mesh together. So yeah, I'm just gonna start. I am driving 50 miles an hour down an icy highway just to teach myself who God is. I am scraping the bottom of the pot to teach myself how to be hungry. I am scraping my own gut to relearn how to be unsettled. And my guitar is really a shelf with 6 knives made of wire. And I am plucking the strings broken until they prick and stab me into something that still bleeds. And my mother is an annotated Bible holding my spine straight, so I meditate for 30 minutes a day with the sunlight like a gun to my temple. I am becoming light just to watch myself break into particle. I am becoming a sort of science, chaotic storm in one particle. My father tells me he knows who God is. The Bible told my story. I am the whore, the resurrected daughter, and the temple, and he has had dinner with God for 30 years just to still be hungry. The year I turned 21, I walked the world like I was dancing on a wire. I prayed for the fall, but was praised for the grace not to. A grand production unsettled. This is how a goddess bleeds. Demi-divine, blood-soaked, but always spine straight. I sing the lowest notes of the blues just to feel my vocal cords unsettled. I want to know the retaliating painful stroke of Frida Kahlo when they tried to stretch her straight. If God is an electric storm, let my heart be a 12-foot wire. I am getting to know who light is, how constant illumination makes you hungry. Light will bite and fill your memory until all the color bleeds. Make the last place you died, a sanctuary, your mother's temple, rippling your innocence into particle. We were taught innocence is measured by how the wound bleeds. An innocent mind is never unsettled, is always worthy to be saved from the omniscient power of hungry, always knows the path to heaven that is straight. I was innocent until innocence became a lynch wire. I prayed the prayer of Jezebel until my knees reduced to particle. My wounded faith broke ground for a new temple now. Every time I fall in love, I break a bone, and now my skeleton is twisted wire. Maybe only God knows how to make an ocean when the heart bleeds, how to only pour out in beautiful and silent. Yes, I know what silence is. To hold in my magic for fear it will leave my family unsettled. And mama still speaks in scripture to sanctify my mind straight. I do not tell her. Sometimes I leave the church limping and hungry. I tell her the spirit fills, but the ritual leaves me hungry. I greet the elders in my church, my smile sewn like barbed wire. They look at me intently like they're trying to get my story straight. They're wondering if this is how a pure heart bleeds, like being both depressed and in love with a merciful God somehow makes me unsettled. But you can't know this kind of sanctification without knowing what your pain is. I know my pain like a lover. It knows how to bleed me unsettled until I crawl back to my temple hungry and ready to know what whole is. Thank you.
One more brief note. Thank you so much, Tallulah, and I hope you can join us again. But if you enjoyed that, or if you're enjoying any of this, as a side note, we have the CWA Poetry Showcase, which Tallulah will be hosting as her time and schedule allows tomorrow at Innisfree Bookstore and Cafe from 4 to 5:30. Sam Cook will be there, Tallulah will be there, also some more poets from the Boulder community, and I hope you can join us at that too. But beware, that will be a limited seating option. Now we move on to more great poetry.
Can we give it up one more time for Tallulah? That was amazing. I just wanted to throw out there that I grew up in like the Colorado art space, and y'all are lucky to live in this place. Denver has some of the most incredible poets in the country in it. If you ever, like are looking for something to do on an evening, go check out Cafe Nuba or the Mercury Cafe in Denver. They're really one-of-a-kind venues, and a lot of the best artists in the country doing performance poetry came out of those spaces. So, didn't even know it. See, go. Talk to Tallulah about when and where afterwards. So I'm going to read you guys something that is not memorized and is different. And if you guys want to like make some rhythm, and I'll try to work my way into it. This doesn't have as defined of a rhythm because it's not memorized, and that's kind of why I thought it could be fun. If that's cool with anyone who wants to, I'll just read. If you don't do anything, just as well. Give me 2 seconds. It's called On Feeling Safe. They say a language dies every day. Some, like cats, disappear into a knowing winter night. Others, like old women with their children's names, their favorite poems, fresh on their lips. All the words uttered by families and families and generations and generations, now meals unfinished on the table. All the I love yous that launched your families into this ocean of language dried up recipes with ingredients no one remembers by that name? Do the tongue and the breath still remember the way they once moved together? Do the tongue and the breath still remember that singular dance? Your name that stretches on my lips is a 3-syllable flamenco dancer. Your name, a tiny body whose whooshing magic and improbable movement speeds this tiny drum. My name, it means nightmares. It means holiday tinseled with cold sweat, holiday with insomnia. The doors between my sleep and me have faulty locks. The deadbolts slip some nights. For weeks I woke in darkness, as if surfacing from a glassy body of water with no language. My own age and name, dim lighthouses. And each night I would become aware of you, your skin a warm dawn on the eastern pillow. Yet each night, your name was still a dancer in shadow. And then, our bodies would shift, in bed, in unison, 2 fighter pilots rolling together in confident formation, and with no words, no knowledge of self, with language standing outside a wrought iron fence, I would know from the way we moved together, I was okay. That whatever darkness I found myself in, our bodies needed no living language to tell me that they had known one another. 2 halves of one flock of birds, the hurricane and the beasts fleeing from it. One ice skater somehow born in 2 bodies, tongue and breath. What are we doing next? Do we know? Do we have a thing?
They're the dancers.
Dancers? Are they renters? Yes!
Who wants dancers? Who wants dancers? Anybody? Dance is okay. All right, I'm going to invite a transfer of percussion or any percussion people that want to come down, and let's experiment. I'll invite in our dancers. For all of you, I acknowledge that this is kind of a hard space, especially to see this zone up here. Our dancers do know this. They have tried to keep everything on a top level, but we can't accommodate everybody's viewpoint. If you're in the back, feel free to stand up, but be aware of everybody else's sight line. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh. If you're over there, we invite you to come stand over here so you can see us. And give us energy. It's okay if you like shout, if you scream, if you clap, because the more energy you give us, the more energy we'll give back to you guys.